What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Big Fight Fuel channel, where we speak the truth, we're honest, and we give our takes on the Miami Dolphins. It is Friday, November 10th, 2023, and today we are doing a mid-season review here on the Big Fight Fuel channel, and we're looking forward to the next 8 games to end the season for the Miami Dolphins. I feel like the season has gone by so fast. It amazes me when NFL season gets around here that we're all excited, and it just goes by so fast, and it's going by so fast right now that Thanksgiving is nearly here, which is it's absolutely crazy to say that I feel like the season just started, and now we're sitting here November 10th. The Miami Dolphins are on a bye, and we have a lot to talk about, man. We're going to talk about, I got a whole list of things that I want to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about the first 9 games and how I think those went briefly. And then we'll get into categories such as the coaching, Tua, how he's played the first couple games. I don't have like every single position. Like, I don't have tight end or running backs that I want to talk about, or linebackers, because I think those are fine right now. I do want to talk about like Tua and the secondary and the receivers. And then finally, the biggest thing that we will get into, which will be the last thing, is the final 8 games for the Miami Dolphins to end the 2023 season. So we got a lot on the table today. This is basically bye-week content with no game this week. I'm very happy. And I know a lot of Dolphin fans, they are, they don't like the bye because they have to wait an extra week to see the team play. I love the bye. It's at a perfect time. It's right in the middle of the season. The players get to rest and recuperate going into the second half, which is basically a second half. You played 9 games in the first half, and now you're going to play 8 games in the second half of the season. And plus, it gives us Dolphin fans the opportunity to not stress on game day. I know there's a couple games this year where the Dolphins won the games comfortably and convincingly. But it's good just to be able to sit back, watch other teams, and see how those teams play. Like, I'm excited to watch Texans-Bengals this weekend. I think that's going to be a very good game. C.J. Stroud is my fantasy quarterback. I'm excited to watch, hopefully, C.J. Stroud tear it up once again. I'm excited to watch games like the Browns versus the Ravens, see how the Ravens are doing. They're demolishing teams, which we'll talk about them later because they're a part of our last 8 games of the season. We have so much to talk about. I was very pissed off. I was frustrated, and I was sitting here calling the Miami Dolphins frauds, and they're not going to make the playoffs. That's done and over with. We move on. That game's in the past. I don't want to hear the word Germany after the game between the Colts and Patriots, because that word will just give me bad flashbacks to the game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. I would have absolutely loved to beat the Chiefs, but I mean, at the end of the day, we have to move on. We cannot talk about it forever. We have to worry about the second half of the season for the Miami Dolphins. So that's what we're going to talk about, man. Those are all the things we're going to talk about. And if you haven't already, be sure to go ahead and check out the Week 10 predictions here on the Big Fight Fuel channel. Last night, I predicted the Chicago Bears to defeat the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football. Might have been the worst game of the entire year, but I'm 1-0 on the week, so that is great. Let's dive right into it, man, because almost knocked over my charger. Let's dive right into it because we got so much to talk about. Probably going to be here for like 30 minutes in this video, so that's like good timing, I guess. The first 9 games of the season, the Miami Dolphins are 6-3 going into the bye week at week 10. They have lost to the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they have wins over the LA Chargers, the New England Patriots twice, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, and the Carolina Panthers. I want to talk about the 3 losses first, because I feel like that's what everybody is talking about with this team, is the fact that the Dolphins cannot beat good teams. And yes, right now, that narrative is true. However, the Miami Dolphins might have a couple opportunities to kill that narrative. It could be Black Friday. It could be Black Friday against the Jets. It could be the second game against the Jets. Or we might have to wait until Christmas Eve until we play the Dallas Cowboys. But I'll talk about it later. But at some point in the season, the Miami Dolphins are going to have to grow some balls, and they're going to have to kill that narrative, and they're going to have to beat a good team before the playoffs. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the video when we talk about the last 8 games of the season. But I want to talk about these games with Buffalo and the Eagles and the Chiefs, because that's what everybody's talking about. I thought about these games last night during the Thursday night game. That's how much I paid attention to that game last night. And I looked back on those games, and I'm trying to process what these games were and when we caught these teams. Going into the game against the Buffalo Bills, their defense was getting high praise, man. They were fully healthy. Josh Allen was playing great. The defense for the Bills was the best defense in the NFL at that point. The Dolphins were coming off a 70-point win against the Denver Broncos. People thought they were going to be due for some regression. I actually thought they were going to beat the Bills going into that game. And they dropped an egg. And that was their worst performance. It's between that and the Chiefs game. I don't know. It's close. I might have to give it to the Chiefs game. But the defense was bad in this game. Vic Fangio did not have this defense prepared. Josh Allen was able to do anything he wanted against the Miami Dolphins defense. And the Bills offense was marching up and down the field any chance they got. They had 31 points at halftime. And Tua was getting sacked, and that was the game Teron Armstead went out. And Kendall Lamb had to come in for him, and Connor Williams. He hurt his groin. Our offensive line debacled that game, and the Bills' defensive line was just too much for the Dolphins' offensive line to hold up. And I think at that point of the season, the Dolphins caught the Buffalo Bills at a bad time. I also think they caught the Eagles at a bad time, too. The Eagles game was much more competitive. It was a terrible officiating game. It was by far the worst officiated game out of any NFL game that I've watched this season. The officiating in that game was ridiculous. But the Dolphins were competitive in this game. There was a point where the Dolphins just got a pick 6 off of Jalen Hurts, and it was a 17-17 game. Then the Eagles go and score a touchdown. Tua threw a pick, but there was a non-pass interference call. There was a pass interference that should have been called on the Eagles and Zach Cunningham, but it wasn't called. And then the Eagles offense, they do their thing, tush pushes, and all that stuff. But the Dolphins were more competitive in that game. They just came up short at the end. And that wasn't a game I was really frustrated with. The Bills game, I was disappointed because the Bills were just they absolutely dominated us, and the hatred that us fans have for the Bills, it was very disappointing. And The last game against Kansas City, I don't even want to talk about it. I hate that game so much, man. I don't even want to talk about it. That was just what a mess. So, yeah, you look at those 3 games. I think they caught the Bills at a bad time. The Bills were one of the hottest teams in the league going into that week. I think they caught the Eagles at a bad time. However, I thought they caught the Chiefs at a good time because the Chiefs were coming off a loss to the Denver Broncos where they had only just scored 9 points. And literally, the team did not show up in the first half. And when you go down 21-0 against the Kansas City Chiefs, chances are you're not going to win the game. And that's exactly what happened. Their little third quarter comeback wasn't enough to beat the Chiefs. They needed more, and they got shut out in the first half, and it was ugly against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you look at the 6 wins. The Chargers game was the best win of the season so far. You look at that, you go back at that, look at that game. That is their best win of the season because going into that game, I actually thought the Chargers were going to win, and I was going based off last year's matchup against the Chargers. Tua went off for that game. He threw for 466 yards. Tyreek had over 200 receiving yards. The defense was getting demolished by the Chargers' running game, and it was the offense that came through in that game. And then you had the 2 wins against the Patriots, both competitive games. The Dolphins hold on in the first game in New England, and in the second game, the Dolphins get basically a walk-off touchdown to win the game by 2 possessions, 31-17. And then you look at the Denver Broncos game, that was just straight demolition, that was just straight domination the entire game on offense and defense. Got 3 turnovers on the Broncos. You just demolished them. You beat the Giants comfortably week 5. Defense had 7 sacks. And you beat the Panthers pretty comfortably too. You were down 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, and you end up winning the game 42-21. So those were basically their first 6 games. And all the people are talking about is the fact that the Dolphins can't beat a good team, which is fair. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. It's fair. It's a fair argument to make. But I want to get into these categories real quick, just from like how I think they are after the first 9 games. Let's talk about the coaching. Mike McDaniel, for the most part, has been phenomenal this season. He's one of the better play callers in the NFL. His play designs, his ability to draw up plays, to get receivers open, like the one play against the Patriots. You motion Tyreek Hill. One of the defenders goes and guards Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle is butt naked, wide open, and he walks into the end zone. The play against the Broncos, the first touchdown drive, Tyreek Hill, again, butt naked open in the middle of the field, easy touchdown. His play designs have been really good. Where he's not his best is when they play good defenses. And that has to change, man. Because not only are you going to play good defenses down the stretch, you're going to play a good defense in the playoffs. That has to change. It's nice to see him put up great numbers against the Chargers. And it's nice to see him put up great numbers against the Broncos and Carolina. But he has to do it against teams like the Jets. And I've been saying it over and over again the past couple weeks. The Jets have the best defense in the AFC. Their defense is unbelievable. They have 2 all-pro corners. They have the Williams brothers. They have C.J. Mosley. They're unbelievable. They're really, really good. And Robert Saleh has said it in his press conferences so far before. We might not have gotten to win every single game, but every single game this season, the Jets have embarrassed every single quarterback that they faced. And that is true. You have to have good games against good defenses like the Jets and the Cowboys and the Baltimore Ravens. You can't just go out there and have a great game plan against these shitty teams and then have a game plan and fold under pressure. He folded under pressure against the Buffalo Bills. He folded under pressure against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. That can't happen anymore. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, I'm not going to lie. The beginning of the season was rough for old Vic. And he had no clue how to stop Josh Allen. He had no clue how to stop the Chargers' running game. The first quarter, they got absolutely torched by Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. The rest of the game was great. And the Eagles game, it was It was an performance by the defense. But ultimately, they scored 31 points. The Eagles did. So your defense kind of did let you down. But it's all turned around. At least I wouldn't say it's all the way yet. But getting Jalen Ramsey back is a big deal. And we've seen how much of a threat he is. Get a pick in his first game back against the Patriots. Last week, they get a couple sacks on Mahomes. They get a big fumble turnover. They're first in the league in quarterback hits. And I'll talk about that when we get to the defensive line later in a little bit. But I think with the return of Jalen Ramsey and Jalen Phillips being healthy and Javon Holland being healthy, I think the more time all these starters play together, the better this defense is going to be. So they were great against the Kansas City Chiefs, and we need them to keep that up in the second half of the season. So it was a bad start for Vic, but it feels like he's turning things around with having all of his starters out there. All right, let's get into players. Tua. Let's talk about Tua for a little bit. Tua has had more good games than he's had bad games this season. I would say, out of 9 games in the season, Tua has played 7 good games, and he's had 2 stinkers. Those coming against the Buffalo Bills, Week 4, and last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. By far, his worst game of the season so far. But he's playing phenomenal the first 9 games of the season. He's in the conversation for MVP. I wouldn't say he's the MVP right now because he has to get a win over a good quality team. I wouldn't put him in the MVP. I wouldn't give him the MVP. He's certainly in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Hurts. But I would not put him as the MVP right now. He certainly had a phenomenal season. So far, he's leading the league in passing yards with 2,609 passing yards. He has 19 touchdowns, and he had 7 interceptions. That's the one thing we have to get rid of. I understand that every quarterback is going to have a bad play once in a while in a game. But his bad plays are turnovers. And I feel like every game you're going to get that bad throw and it's going to be like, I wish he had that one back. That was a bad throw. That was underthrown. That was overthrown. He's had a pick against the Chargers, the Patriots. I think he threw a pick against the Buffalo Bills. He threw a pick six against the Giants. He threw a pick against the Eagles. And he had a bad interception against the Patriots. That interception to Kyle Duggar in Week 8, that was his worst throw of the entire season. I had no idea what his thinking process was when he made that throw. That was terrible. But overall, Tua has had a phenomenal season. I'm happy with 19 touchdown passes. He's got to cut down on the interceptions. But the thing that I'm most thankful for is the fact that he's healthy. He has not gotten hurt once all season long. Okay? Knock on wood. I'm sorry. My dog is barking at me now. I'm sorry. Please. Please. I should not have done that, folks. I'm sorry. But a little knock on wood there. That he does not get hurt in the second half of the season. Because so far he hasn't been hurt once. And the fact that he is getting rid of the ball so quickly in games, it helps a lot. It certainly helps. So overall, he's doing great. And I hope he keeps it up and he cuts down on the interceptions. The wide receivers. Someone has to make a big play other than Tyreek Hill. And that includes Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, I know he's been banged up the entire season, basically. He had the oblique injury in training camp. He got the concussion week 2 against the Patriots. He's been dealing with an abdomen injury. I knew he fought through an injury against the Kansas City Chiefs. He really wasn't effective in that game. And so far, he has 40 catches, 522 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And I know that he's better than that. And he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. And Mike McDaniel said that the main objective for this week, for the bye week, is to make sure that Jalen Waddle gets healthy. Because he has been banged up for the entire season. And look, I love Waddle. He's phenomenal. He is a wide receiver 1 on most teams in the NFL. You can go through any team in the AFC for yourselves and see and ask yourself if he's a wide receiver 1 on certain teams. Most of the teams, yes, he is. But the main thing that is holding him back is the injuries. So I'm hoping for a bigger second half for him. But I want to see other receivers on this team make big plays other than Tyreek. Because I know Tyreek is on his march for 2,000 yards. He currently has 1,076 receiving yards, and he's got 8 touchdowns, which is the most in the NFL, the most receiving touchdowns. And as we get later into the season, teams are going to see more film of how Tyreek is getting wide open and how to stop Tyreek. The Kansas City Chiefs, I thought, did a great job at stopping Tyreek Hill. They only held him to 62 receiving yards. They did a great job on Tyreek Hill. I think more teams are going to see how to stop Tyreek Hill, and they are not going to want him to get 2,000 yards. That is for damn sure. And these other receivers are going to have to make plays. I'm talking about Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, Chase Claypool, River Craycraft when he comes back. These receivers are going to have to make plays. Because just like the Chiefs game, there's going to come a time where a defense is shutting down Tyreek Hill. and these other receivers have to step up. So that's what I'm looking for out of this receiver group. I want to see Jalen Waddle get more healthier. Obviously, he's been battling through a lot of injuries in the first half of the season. Um, so I'm hoping he gets healthier and he's able to play next week. But these other receivers, they have to make plays. They have to. The offensive line, I want to see more consistency out of the offensive line. They are blowing my expectations out of the water. That's what I want to first say. Kudos to Butch Barry, the offensive line coach for the Dolphins, for getting as much possible out of these guys, and they have been, for the most part, amazing, especially Austin Jackson. I did not want to forget that. We did not know what we were going to get out of Austin Jackson this season. He has been phenomenal, and it's making me think he deserves a good, solid contract at the end of the season. That's how good that man has been playing. It is a priority to re-sign Austin Jackson at the end of the season. But I want to see more consistency. We've been seeing these offensive linemen in and out of the lineups because they're going down with injuries. Week 4, Teron Armstead gets injured, and Kendall Lamb is right back in the starting lineup. Connor Williams is out. Liam Eichenberg is at center. Isaiah Wynn, I'm pretty sure, is out for the season. And, we have Liam Eichenberg, Lester Cotton, that combination at left guard. Robert Jones, he plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. He goes down in the fourth quarter. Liam Eichenberg has to come in. It's just not consistent. It is not consistent at all because our offensive line is banged up. Again, another big reason I'm so happy for the bye week is for guys like Robert Hunt to get better. And I'm hoping he's able to play against the Las Vegas Raiders next week and get the offensive line healthy. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Isaiah Wynn's out for the season, which is a bummer. It really is. But that left guard spot is the most concerning spot. Robert Jones is hurt. Right now, I think that spot is Lester Cotton's. I would say left guard belongs to Lester Cotton right now. However, I'm putting him on a short leash. If there's any time in the game that he's really struggling and teams are picking him apart, I would not be afraid to make a change and put Liam Eichenberg in there. Listen, Liam Eichenberg is Liam Eichenberg. Liam Eichenberg sucks. And that's the truth. Liam Eichenberg's not a good NFL. He's not an NFL starting caliber offensive lineman. But, if Lester is not getting the job done for you, you might have to go back to Liam at left guard. And there was a couple times where Raheem Mostert had his big runs right before the 2-minute warning, and Liam had some big blocks. He was getting down there blocking the safety and blocking the linebacker, and he made some good plays. So that's the most questionable spot right now with Isaiah Wynn hurt is left guard. Right now, I'm saying it's Lester Cotton's spot, but if he's not performing to the level that we want him to, he's on a short leash. So that's what I want to say about the offensive line. First half of the season, it's been great. I want to see more consistency. I want to see Teron Armstead on the field more. Earn that paycheck. And Connor Williams wants to get paid. Earn it. Stay on the field. Stay healthy. Play well. Make good snaps. Earn it. Defensive line. Defensive line might be one of my favorite units of this team. And the Dolphins posted a video on their YouTube channel today. 29 sacks on the season for the Dolphins defensive line. Recently, they are getting the job done. Bradley Chubb specifically. I want to talk about Bradley Chubb. He has been very good this season for the Miami Dolphins, and he's earning that paycheck that we paid him for. We gave up a first-round pick for Bradley Chubb, and he's earning it. He is earning it right now. He's got 40 tackles on the season. He's got 6 sacks, and he's got 4 forced fumbles. He forced a fumble on Patrick Mahomes last week. He forced a fumble on Jalen Hurts. I know he got a fumble on the Sunday night game. I don't remember the other game that he forced a fumble. I can't remember off the top of my head. But excuse me. For all the Bradley Chubb haters out there, he's been having a very good season, man. You have to give him his credit. Jalen Phillips, not healthy for a couple games, but he's been very good recently. He's at the healthiest point of his season right now. He's at 3.5 sacks, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's going to be a superstar. He's going to be a superstar." Get the word going out of there, and I want to hear he is a superstar. He needs to shut those people up who are saying Jalen Phillips is the future. Jalen Phillips is the now for the Miami Dolphins, and that's what I want out of him in the second half, because we play teams with weak offensive lines. The Titans, the Commanders, the Jets. I expect this defensive line to pick apart those teams. I do. I'm sorry. I expect them to pick apart those teams when we play them, because they don't have great offensive lines. But those guys have to keep it up. I love what I'm seeing out of them so far. They're getting to the quarterback, man. They are first in the NFL with quarterback hits. That's a great sign. That is a great sign, man. The secondary's been battle-tested throughout most of the season. Jalen Ramsey just came back. They've been dealing with Eli Apple and his liability, and Perry Nickerson at times, especially in the Eagles game. Kader Kohu getting absolutely schooled by Stephon Diggs. So at points this season for the secondary, it's been not great. But the fact that Jalen Ramsey's back and, they only allowed 14 yards to Travis Kelce last week, I think is a great sign. I really do. Now, in the next couple weeks, they're going to have some good wide receivers to go up against. The Raiders have Devontae Adams. The Jets have Garrett Wilson. Washington, Terry McLaurin, and Jahan Dotson. I think the secondary is at a good place right now. Overall, I think the defense is at a good place right now, man. I loved what I saw from them outside of the first drive and one drive in the second quarter against the Chiefs. Might have been their best defensive performance of the year, man. You cannot get better than that. It was the offense that let the team down. And there's been some games this year where the defense let the offense down. The Buffalo Bills game, almost the Chargers game, if it wasn't for Tua and Tyreek. They almost let you down. But at the same time, defense has been phenomenal. The defense was phenomenal against the Chiefs, and the offense let you down. So, at this point of the season, I know I said this was going to be around 30 minutes. I'm well past 30 minutes. It is what it is. At this point of the season, let me take a sip of my water real quick. Okay. At this point of the season, the Miami Dolphins are 6-3 in first place of the AFC East, and no matter what happens this week, they are still going to be in first place of the AFC East. The closest that can happen is the Buffalo Bills being a half game back from the Miami Dolphins. These are the last 8 games of the season for the Dolphins. Next week, they play home versus the Raiders. Black Friday in MetLife Stadium against the Jets. That is a monster game for the Miami Dolphins. That game is going to tell us a lot about how this Dolphins team is going to go for the rest of the season heading into December. Which December last year was their kryptonite. Then after the Jets game, they have they're gonna have more than a week off, and then they go to Washington to face the Commanders, who is 4-5. They've been a competitive team. Sam Howell's playing really good right now. They have weapons, but their offensive line stinks, and they traded their 2 edge rushers in Chase Young and Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. Then we play Week 14 at home against the Tennessee Titans. I will be at that game. I told you guys a couple times on the channel, I will be at that game. I will be vlogging at that game. I'm very excited. The Titans have just named Will Levis. Like this week, they just named Will Levis their starting quarterback. They benched Ryan Tannehill. It was the right move. Ryan Tannehill has had 2 touchdown passes all season. Will Levis had 4 touchdowns in 1 game. It's the right move for that organization. But the Titans could have momentum going into that Monday night game. Right now, the Titans are 3-5. They play the Buccaneers this weekend, which is a toss-up game. I think they will win, though. Then they play at Jacksonville next week. I think they lose. And then, before they play the Dolphins, they are home against Carolina and the Colts. So, there's a possibility that the Titans are going into this game against the Dolphins with momentum and at 6-6. So we could have a 6-6 Tennessee Titans team coming to Miami for Monday Night Football. You cannot sleep on that game, folks. You can't sleep on that game. Then we play the Jets Week 15 at home. Again, that game is big. That could be the game that the Miami Dolphins have a chance to shut these people up and get a win over a team better than 500. Because you look at the Jets' schedule, they play the Raiders this week. Next week, they play the Bills. Then they play the Dolphins on Black Friday. Then they play home against the Falcons, home against the Houston Texans, and then at Miami. So let's say they beat the Raiders this weekend, which I think they will. They lose to the Bills. They lose to the Dolphins on Black Friday. They beat the Falcons. They beat the Texans. They're 7-6 going into that game against the Miami Dolphins. That's the game. The Miami Dolphins have the chance to break the narrative that they can beat a team over 500. That could be a huge game. That could be, we don't know yet. But right now, our biggest game right now is the Black Friday game against the Jets. It could be the second game against the Jets, but we have to see how things plan out. But that will be a big game for sure. Then we end the season home against the Cowboys, in Baltimore, and home against the Buffalo Bills. The Cowboys and the Ravens. You have to beat one of those teams. Because it's not a guarantee that the Jets are going to be over 500 when we play them either times. That's not a guarantee. But you have to get this Dolphins can't beat good teams out of your system before the playoffs. So you have to win one of these games against either the Cowboys or the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens, man, they are blowing teams out right now. They are commanding games. They blew Seattle out of the water. They blew the Lions out of the water. They have beaten the Cincinnati Bengals already this season. They're a good football team. And they might be the most complete team in the entire AFC. Lamar Jackson is playing at an MVP level right now, man. Their running game is unbelievable. So out of these 8 games, the Ravens, Week 17, is your toughest game of the season right now. It's not the most important right now, but it's the toughest. It's going to be the toughest. But looking at these games, obviously next week we play the Raiders. You cannot overlook that. The Raiders are a team who has nothing to lose. They fired Josh McDaniels. The team wants to play for Antonio Pierce. They're starting a rookie quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. They have nothing to lose. Those teams are scary, but you cannot overlook the Raiders, man. So, let's say, and this is as far as I'm going to go. Let's say next week they beat the Raiders. That Black Friday game against the New York Jets in New York will determine how the rest of the season is going to go against the Miami Dolphins. So, that's all I got. That's all I got, man. Very long video, and it makes up for the whole week since there's no game, there's no preview. So this is basically your Dolphins content for the entire week. We dived into pretty much everything, man. We talked about the first 9 games. We talked about the coaching. We talked about Tua, the receivers, the offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, and most importantly, we talked about the final 8 games of the season against the Miami Dolphins. And I'm telling you, man, I know we play the Raiders next week. Again, you can't overlook the Raiders. You got to get the job done against them. But that Black Friday game against the New York Jets is huge. I can't describe it enough how big that game is against the Jets. So, and you're going to be coming off a short week, and you're going on the road. So, I'm getting out of here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Big Fight Fuel channel for some more content. No content for the rest of the week, but next week is a busy week, man. I'm going to lay it out to you like this. Wednesday, we're going to have NFL Week 11 predictions here on the channel. Thursday, I have not done AEW content since September, since Grand Slam. And with Full Gear this coming week, we're going to be doing predictions for Full Gear on Thursday here on the channel. I might or might not have my co-host back, Cameron Johnson and Wesley Williams. I'm going to talk to those guys, see if they are available for Thursday night. Friday, preview for the Raiders and Dolphins. Saturday night, the Full Gear review, and then Sunday, the post-game recap video for the Raiders and Dolphins. So you guys are getting 5 videos this upcoming week on the Big Fight Fuel channel. And then the following week is Thanksgiving week, and we will do. I don't know if I'll do Week 12 predictions or not, but we will have coverage for Dolphins Jets on Black Friday. So subscribe, comment down below, hit the like button, follow me on Twitter at Conlon_Joseph, and I'm getting out of here. I will see you guys Wednesday for Week 11 picks and predictions. So I'm getting out of here. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night. Stay safe. And as always, stay classy and fins up. Peace.